Good morning, Year 4. Actually, good afternoon, sorry. Hope you're all well. Miss Tilsley here, obviously. Honestly, it's not going very well so far, is it? With your SCARF learning for today. So, today we're going to be learning to identify different rights and responsibilities by working together so we can understand that humans have rights and also responsibilities that come with them. So, the camera keeps moving, so I'll just try and make sure I don't knock it. There we go. Okay, so what does it mean to be responsible for something? So last week we were looking at being responsible, what a responsible adult looks like. Okay, and we were thinking about this word responsible. And what does it mean to be responsible for something? Okay, so what does it mean to be responsible? Let's have a think now, pause the screen here, and have a think. You can jot these answers down if you would like, or just say them out loud. What does it mean? Okay, so to be responsible for something, the word responsible actually means to either look after a person or a thing. It means to be reliable and trustworthy and to have important duties. So the dictionary actually gives us 3 different definitions for the word responsible. And last week we looked at all the different people that are responsible for different things. So we looked at policemen, we looked at teachers, we looked at firefighters. Okay, we looked at lots of different people and we looked at their responsibilities, who they were responsible for, and then we thought about how we can help these people as well. Okay, so what we can do in order for them to be responsible for their job. Today we're going to be thinking about rules, okay, and responsibilities and rights within that. So firstly, I want you to think about what kind of rules do we have in school? Kind of rules. This is a good recap actually in terms of coming back into school next week and what kind of rules we're going to need to follow again. So I want you to jot down somewhere, what kind of rules do we have in school and why are they important? Okay, so pause the screen here and can you think about what kind of rules we have in school and why are they important? Okay, so rules that we have in school, it might be a simple rule. For example, walking on the left-hand side, that is a rule that we have in school. Okay, now that is important to make sure that we are, firstly, to do with COVID, in order to socially distance from other people, but also, as you go through life, you'll notice that there is a kind of a code, if you like. We drive on the left-hand side. Okay, and us walking on the left-hand side on one side makes it easier for the people to come in the other direction on the other, so we're not bumping into so many people. Okay, so it's giving us spatial awareness as well. Things like rules of not running through the corridors. That's important because we're not going to cause a danger to other people. We're not going to cause a hazard, okay, in order for someone else to get hurt and bump into us. Okay, we have rules of anti-bullying in school, no bullying. That is important to make sure that everyone feels safe in school. Okay, everybody has a right to come into school and to learn in a safe environment. And if somebody is being picked on or being bullied, then that makes that environment an unhealthy one and not a very safe one. Okay, so we have kind of these kind of rules in school. We have lots of other rules as well. So maybe you said different kinds of rules that I haven't mentioned here. Okay, then what kind of things, in terms of the country then, okay, we have rules in school that we need to follow. We'll have different kinds of rules at home. For example, going to bed at a certain time. Okay, eating the dinner table with your family maybe. Only playing on the Xbox for an hour if you've earned it. Okay, making sure that you've completed your homework. You might have rules at home. I want you to think about now, what kind of rules do we have in this country? So this country in particular, in England where we live, what kind of rules do we have? Now, again, I want you to jot those down and have a think about what kind of rules we have in this country. Okay, so you might have said things like, in this country, we are allowed to go and play outside. Okay, we're allowed to, at the moment, the rules of the country is very different. Okay, you'll notice a few more of the rules because obviously we're in lockdown at the minute. So the rules at the moment are that we're not allowed to go and visit family members. We're not allowed to go into other people's houses. Okay, we're only allowed to go to a park with our family that we live with. And those are rules that have changed because of COVID, the current situation. But normally, you are allowed to go to the park, for example. Other rules include you can only drive a car if you have a driver's license. You are only allowed to buy an alcoholic drink if you are over the age of 18. If you are under the age of 10, no, if you're under the age of 18, you have to go to school. Okay, that is a rule. Are the rules the same in every country? So are the rules that we have in this country, are they the same in every country? What do you think? Okay, not all the time, no. Other countries have got it very different to us. Okay. For example, in other countries, you could drive either at an earlier age or at older. In other countries, women might not be allowed to vote. So in this country, when you hit the age of 18, you are allowed to, if you choose, to vote for who would be the government. Whereas in some countries, you're not allowed to. Okay, women are not allowed to have a vote still in some countries. In some countries, there's a rule that it's not law to go to school. So some children don't have to go to school. Okay, whereas in this country, it is law, it's law that you have to go to school if you are under the age of 18. Okay, now we have something called the United Nations. Now, the United Nations is a governing body that looks after a lot of different countries. Okay, so the word United Nations was created after the Second World War, and we know it as something called the UN. It's comprised of 193 different nations. There's so many different countries, part of the United Nations. Okay, now the United Nations is really, really important because what it does is it sets along different rules that every country has to follow. Okay, so because, like we said here, some countries don't have the same rules as us. Okay, they don't have the same rules, and there might be different rules to do with education, to do with voting, to do with socializing. Okay, some countries have different rules about what you can wear outside, what clothes you're allowed to actually be seen wearing in public. So all rules are different in every country. Lots of countries are members of this United Nations because obviously in every country at the moment, the person that sets our rules in this country is Mr. Boris Johnson. He is the current Prime Minister, and he, along with the government and his parliament, sets rules that we follow in this country. Other countries will have a Prime Minister, they might have a king or a queen, or they might have a president that sets the rules for their country. Now, the rules have got to follow, they have to play by the same rules as other people. They can't just make up a rule. Okay, it has to go through lots of different other people, and it has to be okayed by the United Nations. Okay, so they are a big governing body that makes sure that actually, yes, it is fair to say that you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to ask the people living in your country to do that. Okay, so they kind of look after lots of countries and check that it's fair, that all countries are making it fair for people, for humans to live. Okay. One of the rules is that children have rights. Okay, so at the moment, we've talked about last term, but you are looked after by your parents, you belong to your parents look after you, you belong to families, okay, and we are responsible for you. Okay, as adults, there are certain choices that you can't make by yourself. Some choices need to be made by your parents, okay, because at the moment, before you become an adult, we help you to make those choices. Okay, or we make the choices for you. So, for example, I'm sure if I let my daughter choose what time she went to bed every night, it wouldn't be at 7:30. Okay, if I let her choose what activity she was going to do, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't get her off games. So I, as the adult, make the choices that will make sure that she is doing well. So I will make the choice that she has to go to bed at a certain time to make sure she gets her sleep. As an adult, I'll choose to give her healthy food, okay, to make sure that she is being healthy and looked after well. Okay, so adults at the moment make choices for you. Now, as children, you have rights. Okay, as adults, we have rights, but it's also important to understand that as children, you also have rights. The UN, the United Nations, has come up with something called the Convention of the Rights of the Child. Okay, now the Convention on the Rights of the Child is an international, so that means many, many different countries, international treaty, so a group of rules that recognises the human rights of children, which is everyone under the age of 18 years old. So basically, it's saying that every child has basic human rights, okay, and it's got rules for every country to follow. The convention ensures that it is international law that the members, the countries that take part, must ensure that all children receive special protection and help. have access to education and healthcare, can develop their personalities, abilities, and talents to the fullest potential, grow up in an environment of happiness, love, and understanding, and are informed about and participate in achieving their rights. Okay, so that's a big rule to follow for many, many different countries. Okay. Now, why might the UN have problems getting all countries to treat children fairly? You might think to yourself, well, why do we need this? Surely it's a given that all children need to be given access to food. Surely all children must go to school. But some countries don't have that. Many children work in factories. In order for some of the poorer countries to make their money, they have children that go to work. So instead of going to school, they're not at home all day, they're actually going to work. Okay. Poor countries can't afford to provide schools. So some countries can't actually afford to build the buildings in order to teach the children. Okay. And some countries even use children in their armies. So really, these are not very nice ways of growing up. Okay. So I'm going to have a look at these. Now, these are different rights. Okay. I want you to think about, is it a right? Is it something that you should be allowed to do? Or is it not a right? Actually, is it something that really, it's not a rule that the country should follow? So for example, I just want you to just thumbs up or thumbs down on the screen. So a right or not a right? Children have a right to play outside. What do you think? Do you think that is a rule that countries should follow? Or is that not a rule? A rule. The children do have a right to play outside. Okay. That is why, on the next slide, you'll see, that is why in countries like England, we have parks that you can go and visit. We have after school clubs. We have football pitches. That's because it is actually a rule that the country has to follow, that children have a right to play outside in a safe environment. So that the country then give you parks in order to go and play with. That's why one of the lockdown rules this time round was that parks are allowed to stay open because children have a right to play outside. That's why we have break times and lunch times, and we have spaces in school where you can go and play outside, because that is your right to go outside and get fresh air on a daily basis. Children have a right to go to bed when they feel like it. What do you think? Definite rule? Not a rule. Okay, this one is not a rule. I know you feel like it should be, but the countries do not make up a rule saying that children can choose whenever they go to bed, else we'd get a lot of very mardy, grumpy children that just need to go to sleep. Okay. Children have a right to eat a healthy diet. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. Children do have a right to eat a healthy diet. That is why things like school dinners are offered up to the age of, in England, you have a free school dinner up to year 3 that is provided for you, but also school dinners are provided at school as well as an option in order to buy. Okay, and there's lots of different ways of getting things like free school meals. That is because children have this right to eat healthily. Okay, the government has a responsibility to ensure that all children have access to a healthy diet. That is a definite right. That is why when in the lockdown, you'll have news all about free school meals and all about food packages and food parcels being made open to people, because children have got a right to that. The government should, it is their responsibility to make sure that you can access healthy food. Okay. Children have a right to keep pets. Rule, not a rule. Okay, that one's not a rule, even though you're probably thinking, oh, I definitely should be able to. Yes, of course, you are allowed to have a pet, but that is a decision that your parents make. That is the decision that the adult is making for you. Okay, the adult is making that choice, whether or not you would like a pet at home. Okay, but it's not a rule that you have to have one. Okay? Children have a right to watch television on weekends. Okay, again, not a right. If it was a right, then the government could have a responsibility to provide you with TVs, with time to sit down in your room all weekend. Okay, it's not a right, it's something that you would like to do, not a right that everybody can do. Okay. Children have a right to be treated by a doctor when they are ill. Right or not a right? Okay, well done, that's a right. Okay, every child has a right to be treated by a doctor. So this is why it is very important that if you are poorly, that your parents, even though you are not the one making those appointments, your parents are making those appointments. But the doctor cannot say no. The doctor can't really say, nah, I'm not going to look after you today. And that's why we're in this country, we're really lucky because we have something called the NHS, the National Health Service, and that's free. That's free for all children. Okay, all children don't have to, no children have to pay for their medicine. As an adult, we will, but children can access it completely for free. And that is because it is a responsibility of the government to make sure that all children have a right to be treated by a doctor when they are poorly. Children have a right to eat sweets. Right or not a right? Not a right, okay? It's not a rule that all children must eat sweets. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. We've got children as a right to keep pets again, that should be there. Children have a right to be safe at all times. What do you think? Perfect. You have a right to be safe at all times. Okay, it's really important that as adults, yes, it is our responsibility to keep you safe, but it also is the responsibility of the government to ensure that you are safe. It is in the government's responsibility to ensure that the places you visit are safe. For example, parks are safe, schools are safe, clubs that you attend are safe. Okay, children have a right to be safe at all times. And finally, children have a right to go to school. Okay, this is a responsibility of the government to make sure that you have access, and every child in this country has access to a school. Okay, so all children under the age of 18 has to go to school, and it is up to the government to make sure that there are enough places in schools for children to go to. Okay, because you have that right. So no children should be at home when there is a school nearby to open. So if sometimes schools are full, you'll be offered a place at another school because the government have a responsibility to make sure that you are taught and given education. Some countries don't have, aren't given education, okay? It's worth thinking about. Okay, so what I would like you to do today is thinking about all of those different rights. I'll put them on in a second. Okay, so for example, I want you to create a poster based on one of those rights. And on the top of your poster, I want you to write the right. So for example, children have a right to play outside. That is a right that children have. You should be allowed to play outside. You should be given lots of opportunities to play outside. Then on your poster, I want you to draw underneath. I've taken photos, but I want you to draw how the government makes sure, or how the country makes sure that you can play outside. So for example, children have a right to play outside, and because of that, the government build parks. We have playtime during our school day. We have school clubs. You might put about football clubs. I want you to draw lots of pictures about how we enable you to have a right to play outside. You could choose, and if I just highlight the ones that you are allowed to choose from, you might choose children have a right to eat a healthy diet. So what is it that we do to ensure that you have a healthy diet? So it might be free school meals. You might talk about options of, so for example, even at McDonald's, the option of having the carrot sticks. That is an option because you have a right to also choose a healthy diet. Things like school dinners, okay, being offered a school dinner up to the Key Stage 2, all the way through Key Stage 1, school dinners are free for children. Okay, children have a right to be treated by the doctor. You might draw pictures of a hospital or a doctor's or the NHS or a pharmacy. Things like 111 or 999, all of those are free for you. We don't have to pay for these. Okay, they are free for children to access. A right to be safe at all times. What is it that we do to make sure that you are safe? Okay, and children have a right to go to school. How is it that this is enabled? How do we enable you to go to school? So it might be lots of school buildings. It might be giving you, making sure that you come into school every day, making sure that we're doing the registering, giving you attendance, lots of different, think about remote learning. What have we done to make sure that you still have been learning even though you're at home? Okay, because it would have been really easy during lockdown to just turn around and say, right, you're at home, I'm at home, brilliant, let's all have this time off. We can't do that. One, morally, it's wrong. Two, you have a right to still learn. It is not your choice to be staying at home right now. It's not your choice to not come into school. Therefore, we have a right, a responsibility as teachers to make sure that you are still being taught. Hence the reason why you have these videos and you have online learning and you have lots of different things to use and have access to. That is because you have a right to an education. Okay, that's all I want you to do today. So I want you to choose one of these rights, draw it at the top of the page, and then think about all the different ways that you are provided with that right. Okay, and that's it for today. Cannot wait to see what you draw. Again, show us on Class Dojo or your portfolio. Until we see you next week. Okay, see you very soon. Bye.